welcome back to the managing cultural topics. We have had several people talk about Korean cultural exports and K-pop and things like that. I want to make sure you guys are aware of a few different things. Some of the things that I'm trying to show are here. So we've already gone through the introduction of Korean cultural exports. Thank you very much for Professor Im, and who was the other professor? Was it two professors just presented? Now it's my turn. I'm going to be talking to you a little bit more about the idea of the culture. In the first and second week of our class, we talked a lot about Hofstede. And it should be expected that you will have a quiz question or the final exam question related to Hofstede. Can you guys give me a question related to Hofstede? What do you guys already know about Gert Hofstede and related to Korea? Kim Chae-hyun, are you able to answer a question and identify the significance of Gert Hofstede or Hofstede, or what we're showing on the screen now?
Well, I don't know.
Can you take a guess? Can you try to interpret what it's saying?
Professor, could you tell me
Yeah,
one more time?
Okay.
The question.
The question is, what is important about Hofstede? He talked about something special. He studied something special. He made a research project, a term project, like you guys are doing, and he became super famous. So what is famous about him? And if you're really, really good, you can identify 4 things that he became famous for, but at the same time, he has a mistake. And so it's good to have mistakes. Can anybody identify who is Hofstede? What are those 4 things he identified? Or what is his problem? Or can you use Hofstede to describe Korean culture? We're talking about exporting Korean culture. So what is Korean culture? Can you answer any of those?
Yeah, I can answer that. So Korean people don't want to make a mistake, and they're afraid of it. So it needs to make more perfectly. And opposite thing is like Europe one, and the American thing is like they're having mistakes and they think about that.
I love making mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. And today,
like Canada as well.
I had Professor Kim Sung-hoon and Professor Im Min-gyu. You were taking my job for a little while, and you saw what it's like to teach Korean people. What is it like to teach Korean students? Do they talk a lot in class and answer your questions easily?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. So go ahead, keep describing that. What is the significance of that, since we're talking about managing culture? And if you want to travel to other countries, or if you want to work for Nike, or if you want to work for an international company, why do you care? Why does anybody care?
Because when you work in like a globalized company, then you need to understand that culture things. It's like something is okay, but not my country is not allowed. But my country is allowed, but that country cannot allow that. So you need to understand and learn it. Yeah.
Good. What else? Anything else?
Anything else? There is a similar country in the Hofstede. the Korean one. The El Salvador is same as like Korean culture because it's like as well that El Salvador, they don't want to make a mistake, and yeah, and the height of is really height of the masculinity as well.
Yes, so El Salvador is purple, Korea is green. Purple, green, same. Purple, green, almost the exact same. Purple, green, almost exact same. Purple, green, very close here also. Yes, so the purple, green, you're almost twins. Do you like your Siamese twin sister? How do you have to, what does it mean? What are these? What does power distance mean? What does individualism or masculinity, uncertainty, avoidance, what do these mean? Or better, what is a possible exam question?
The questions it's really hard. Is Hofstede is perfect example of the culture standard.
It is okay. So what Hofstede taught is he taught there's 4 main dimensions of culture. He actually taught 6. Hofstede did a research paper and he studied 6 different dimensions of culture, but 2 of them are terrible. 2 of them suck. So just forget those other 2. Just focus on these 4. The main 4 are power distance, individualism, masculinity, and uncertainty avoidance. So what they mean are these things here. We describe them here. So one exam question are, what are the 4 components of culture proposed by Hofstede? And you just need to name these 4 things. Does that make sense? Mr. Kwan, can you do it?
Yeah.
No, he's watching YouTube,
No.
K-pop, and he's just pretending to watch me. Can you identify what are Hofstede's 4 cultural dimensions that are famous? And next, afterwards, I'm going to ask, what about Jung Woo-won? I'm going to ask you to define 2 of these cultural differences. And then I'm going to ask Jun Hae-rin, I will ask you the 3rd question. I will ask you to explain Korea using one of Hofstede's cultural dimensions. Do you understand your question, Jung Hae-rin?
Yes.
Okay. Who else? Mr. Kwan, I didn't ask you a question, right? Not yet? So I'm going to ask you the hardest question possible. What we know that Hofstede did a research paper just like you are doing for our class. And Hofstede found these 4 things, and he said these 4 things can be used to describe any culture in the world. So my question for you, Mr. Kwan, is how did Hofstede screw up? What is his problem? You probably won't know it, but you have a little bit of time to check Google. So go ahead. Who's the first one that's going to answer these questions? Was it Chung Woo-won, your first question?
Yes.
You can answer them today. Don't worry.
So, mm, uncertainty avoidance is tend to avoid uncertainty. Right.
Uncertainty avoidance is the preference to avoid uncertainty. Yes, good.
And individualism is do something by themselves.
Individualism is you either like to be individual, do things by yourself, or the opposite is
Opposite is do something together with others.
great, in a group. Good. I think that's your full question, right? So that's good. Anything else you want to add? Or are we supposed to go to the next person?
No.
No what? Another, Hofstede is famous because he described 4 parts of culture. Do you remember we also talked about Edward Hall? Edward Hall talked about culture. Some countries like to use lots of words, and some countries don't like to use lots of words. Guess who is Korea? Edward Hall says Korean people like to use lots of words or not? What do you think?
They don't like to use lots of words.
I think you guys have an allergy to words. I think they're going to kill you if you use too many, right? Kim Sung-hoon
Yeah,
and
probably.
Kim Min-kyu, you guys are so quiet. You never talk in class. You're killing us. Right.
Yeah, I
Korean
know.
culture, according to Edward Hall, they say that you don't use many words here. Right. So is there anything else you would like to say, Jung Woo-won? Or you tell us who is the next student that's going to answer the question.
I think John Harry.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry, Professor. Can you tell me the question again?
I asked you for sure. Okay. The question was, take 2 of these and use 2 of these to describe Korea. Wasn't that the question? Or just describe 2 of these.
I described collectivity and power distance.
Okay, that's what we have right here. You see here on the side, uncertainty avoidance is explained and it's describing Korea here. Collectivist is explained and describing Korea here. Power distance is explained here and describing Korea here. Individualism, masculinity, and uncertainty avoidance, yes. So it's all here on the slide. You just need to basically read it to the class. And if you think Hofstede is drunk or crazy, feel free to tell us, because the next question, I think Mr. Kwan, what is your question that you're checking on Google?
Hofstede problem.
Right. How is he stupid? How is he wrong? Or you can just check our PPT from week 1 and 2. We talked about that. It was in some of the first presentations, but go ahead, Miss Jun.
I think his problem is to generalize to many countries.
Okay. Oh, so you're answering Mr. Kwan's question. Your question, Hidden Jun, you were supposed to use 2 of these to describe Korea.
I think almost explain Korea.
Okay, do it.
Um,
Pick two and read them.
Where I have to read this?
It's your choice.
Um,
It's an exam question. The exam question is use two of Hofstede's cultural dimensions to describe Korea. Period. That is the exam question. Very short exam question.
or uncertainty avoidance and collectivity. That is explain Korea, I think.
No, uncertainty avoidance is just a word. It doesn't explain anything. It's just a word. If you use the word in a long sentence, it might explain Korea, but you need to make a longer sentence to describe Korea. What is Korea with uncertainty avoidance? What is Korea with?
Most people in Korea, I think, they avoid risk, I think, and they careful to say judging people. And they care more group than individual, I think.
Okay, good. So a perfect exam answer would be, with uncertainty avoidance from Hofstede's dimension, Korea scores 85. And generally there's only one other country, El Salvador, that scores more. It is more uncertainty avoidance. It has more fear of uncertainty than Korea, and that is El Salvador. Most other countries are more accepting of risk, like United States is 46, and Denmark is very open to try anything. They're only 23. So that talks about the uncertainty avoidance levels of countries describing Korea. Good. Thank you very much. John Hidden, do you have any questions about that? Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Kwan Junha, was Google good to you, or is Google a headache today?
Good.
No, what? You all need more sentences to say what you're trying to say.
Is good or Google search?
Okay, class is almost finished, so go ahead and wrap up. So this was our presentation for week 1 and 2. And if you remember, it goes through and it talks about a lot of things. Down here, it's starting to describe. Here is, where is it here? So this is where we're talking about Hofstede, and he has these things that describe culture. Hall, these are these things that describe culture. And then Cluckhorn, Strodbeck, Trompenaar, Schwartz-Globe. You don't need to know all of these for the exam, but I hope you know these just for your life. This slide, it's really good if you want to be an academic. Next, this describes a lot of Hofstede. This describes about Hall. This describes more about just Hofstede. And then Hofstede, the same thing again. Hofstede again. Hofstede again. And this is an example of Hofstede comparing many different countries. This was really good. This was Hofstede that we talked about several times in class. Again, this is Hall, which we talked about. You remember Kwan? We talked about how Hall, some people have low context where they rely on lots of words. Other people have high context where they don't rely on any words, just maybe one word or two words. And then Kluckhorn, Stradbeck, Trompenaar, Swartz, there's many details describing them. Those are all here. But Mr. Kwan, did you hear, did you find out what is the problem with Hofstede?
Hofstede research was based on the data from one company. So the finding of one company can be implemented on overall culture to determine cultural dimensions.
Good. So that's what we were talking about here. This was talking about Maslow's and Hofstede, Trompenaar. Here's Hofstede. We talked about how Hofstede's very, very famous, but we also showed that Hofstede, although he's famous, he has a problem because he was only surveying internet geeks or high-tech geeks working for IBM. And no country has the same culture everywhere. For example, in India, they have like 3,000 different cultures inside India.